Welcome to the Midi Quest library video tutorial. A library is a file that contains individual patches of a specific type. So you can have a DX7 voice library. You can have an M1 program library. You can't have a library that stores both M1 programs and DX7 voices in the same file. You also can't have a library that contains banks. So, for example, here, if you have a bank of DX7 sounds and you'd like to add them to the library, moving the bank into the library will actually break that bank up into its component 32 individual voices, and you will have 32 voices added to the library. Now, the library is typically used as a central collection point for all of your sounds. So it's the place, if you organize, if you collect sounds, if you've got 5,000, 10,000 DX7 voices, as you can see they're here. There are over 5,600 DX7 voices. This is one central place. You can keep all your voices, and then if you're looking for something specific, you can come here, do a search, look for bass sounds, look for organ sounds, look for whatever it is you need, do a search, get just the particular type of sound, and then you can go through, click on what you're looking for, audition them, and find what is best suited to what your needs are at the moment. Now, to create, I'm going to close this up. To create a new library, you can do this a number of ways. You can select a data type within an instrument that is a single element type. So choose voice, and then you can go to new, right click on it, and choose library. That will create a new library. Or say here, a voice, you could right click and choose library, or you could go to file, choose new, and choose again library. Alternately, if you've chosen have a type in your studio window selected that isn't a library, you can still choose new library, and what you will get is a list of all the available types that you can actually create a library for. So you could create a Proteus 1 preset. Click OK, and there's your new library. To open an existing library, you can do this a number of different ways. You can click the Open button, go into a particular instrument folder. Here you can filter out for libraries and double click to open. Now, if you know what kind of library you would like and you have that instrument already loaded, you can again go in, select the type, right click on the open button, and you'll get a pop-up menu. You can choose open library. Midi Quest will automatically set the correct extension, put you in the correct directory, and then it's just a matter of double clicking on the library that you want to load up. So in terms of working with libraries in the file menu, we've already looked at new, we've looked at open. Go in and select the file, close, will close up your library. Save library will save the currently selected library to disk. Save library as will open up a file selector. You can type in a new name for your library and save it. and you can print out your library. The print option essentially creates just a long list of, a long list of entries printed out on paper, and you'll get your the name of each patch in the library, as well as all of the keys and the basic settings information. To send within the library itself, as long as you have auditioning set up in the library, and with this I'm talking about, go to library, as long as you have audition set up, each time you click on an entry in the library, that entry is automatically sent down to the instrument, and then either a chord or a sequence is played so you can listen to that sound. You can drag and drop elements from the library into banks or into really any other window. So for example, I'll create a new voice bank here, and I can pick this up and I can drop it into the bank. And you can drag from the library into a collection, into a set, into a bank, into a patch editor, anywhere where you want to put that component from the library. If you don't have Audition for the library enabled, then you can always send patches by selecting the one you want to send, going to the Midi menu and choosing Transmit the Voice, or you can press the Transmit button in the menu bar. Now let's have a look at the various options that are available to you for a library. You can access these options from the library menu, which will be available whenever you have a library selected, or if you right-click in the library window, you will get a pop-up menu. The first option is Cut. If you select Cut, the entry in the library will be removed from the library and placed in the library clipboard. You can then, if you want, paste that entry into a different library, copies the entry from the selected entry from the current library, or entries. You can copy multiples. Choose Copy. The first menu item is Cut, so I can select multiple entries or a single entry in the library. Multiples, just hold down the Control button and click on as many items as you want. I can choose Cut, and that removes the selected items from the library and places them on the library clipboard. You can then, if you want, create a new library and choose Paste to paste those entries into the library. The next item is Copy. Again, I can choose as many items as I want, select Copy. That leaves the items in this library, makes a copy of them on the clipboard, and you can then paste them into this library. You'll notice here that Paste is no longer available. When you paste items from the library clipboard into a library, the items are removed from the clipboard at that time. Copy as text allows you to take the sysx from the selected item, choose Copy, and what it does is it actually pastes it to the Windows clipboard as text. So if I open up Notepad and come in here and go paste, there is the sysx from the file called, or patch called worry, as text. You can now take this text and you can paste it into a sequencer such as Sonar, which accepts sysx data as text. Performer is another example of a sequencer where you can paste hex sysx information into the sequencer as text data. Just close this up. Paste we've already covered. It takes the data that is currently on the library clipboard and pastes it into the active library. Clear removes any selected entries from the library and permanently deletes them. Select all selects all of the entries in the library. Open has a submenu. The first option here is editor window, and what this does is it takes the selected item and opens it up into an editor as a completely separate window. So there is no link between this data here and mono in this file. If you want to keep any changes that you make in this editor, you'll need to save this file separately or copy this file back into the library or whatever, but they're two separate entries. Closing this window doesn't have any effect on the library. Sysx window again makes a copy of the data and opens it in a separate new window, only this time what you get is a sysx, raw sysx hex view of your data. Build Bank is a nice feature. What it allows you to do is select a series of patches that you may want to use for a particular piece of music. And if you choose Build Bank, it will actually create a new bank for you and copy those selected patches right into the bank. So you have a new bank with just the patches that you want. Close that up. Library Settings opens the Settings dialog and gives you the setup information for the library as a whole. So you can select which port you receive data into if you request a patch to add to the library, what port when you're auditioning or sending library entries, this is the port that you're sending to, the COM channel, MIDI channel, all of the parameters that you are used to setting up. The keys parameter is a global set of parameters for the library. You won't normally use these. And the next setting is patch settings. Now this opens up a different, you can actually alter patch settings for a number of entries. And this opens up a similar but different dialog that allows you to change parameters on a per patch basis in the library. So you can, from here, you can actually edit the patch name, add comments. So you could just say, here are my comments. You have two button options here that allow you to clear the setting or set this setting on all of the selected patches. From here you can also set the keys for each of your selected patches. So I can say set bugle. I'm just choosing some of these at random. And I have a nice copy feature where if I check these two, I can say apply checked to all selected, and what it will do is apply these two checked items to each of the patches that I have selected. Update key list brings up the key setup so you can make any alterations you might want immediately. And I can press the OK button to accept these changes, and you now step through to the next item. So this is prints, and you can step through each of these sequentially and update each one. You'll notice that there are slightly different display options here, and the light gray actually is saying that the parameter here are common to all of the selected items, where in black this parameter value is unique to this one single selected patch that you're currently working with. And I can say change this to my prints. Just type in some information here, press the OK button. I can press cancel to stop the process of updating, and there is or are the updated parameters. We'll move on to the View menu. The first sub-item in the View menu is actually the View mode. So you have 4 different display modes. Most of the time you'll probably use columns because it displays and gives you the most information, but you can also display as just the patch names, so you get to view many more entries in your library at one time. You can display as small icons, and you can display as large icons. You'll notice these views are the same as the views that you get when you're working in your Explorer window. And I'm going to return to column view. The next option is set up columns, and in the library you can actually choose what column items are displayed, as well as the default width for each column. So you can say that my second column, the first column is always the name, but the second column could be any one of your 8 keys, the comment, or the date. And so if you wanted, you could choose to show, say, key 5 as your second item, key 4 as your third item, key 8, and you can set up a default width for each of these as well. And you can keep things, if that's all you want to use, you can go in and choose Stop Display. And this is now what your library looks like. You have the name, key 5, key 4, key 8. And that is it. I'm going to go back in and turn my library, turn my setup to the way I like it. And there we go. Next item in the View menu is Query. And Query is a very powerful control and select dialog, which lets you look at just a portion of your library. So you can actually do things like search for duplicates. If I click on duplicates, hit the OK button. This is a big library. I'm going to abort that. The query dialog is one of the library's very powerful features. With this dialog, you can perform all types of various searches and tests to find a particular group of patches within a library that you're interested in. Here you have the query criteria, and you can either perform a single search or combine these any way you want to find a particular combination of patches. Duplicates will actually search your entire library and present you with the duplicates. So here you actually have a list of the patches that Midi Quest found where there were at least 2 patches that were identical, and Midi Quest presents them here so you can actually select these patches and remove them from your library. Clear those and show all. Now you have a library where each patch in the library is unique. You can also look for patches that are similar, patches that have a partial name match, patches that have a particular byte value in a particular location, and a patch that has a particular comment. So I can look for patches that have a 90% similarity. And there are a lot of them. And here is the list. And so Kane matches up very closely to Tap. There are only 3 bytes that have a different value. Tycho, there are 4 bytes, 15, 14, and so on. So these could be very similar. I might want to compare them up and see whether some of these were worth keeping or not. Patches with a name that contains, maybe I want to find all the patches that have organ, or probably are named organ, and there they are. Patches with a byte match, I hope you understand patches with comments that contain. Say you have a particular method of applying comments that you can search on to give you the patches that you're looking for. Now, of course, you have a logic select, so you can say if any one of these selections matches, then you're going to select the patch, or you can say and, so 2 or every option you select to test on must match. The final test for queries is the keys, which is one of the most common tests. And I'm going to show this, I'm going to just check this option. What this does is right now we've filtered down so that there are only a very few number of patches. Each time you apply a query, the query is applied to the patches that are currently displayed. And right now we have 1,365 patches that are hidden, that are not part of the test. So checking this option will add those 965 patches back in before we perform the test. And here what you can do is you can select any combination of keywords and you can say combine them. So here you would be saying I want patches that have horn and digital as matching keywords. Or you can change this and make it horn or digital. You can make it and not, so you could say the keys you have to have horn and not have digital as a keyword, or you could have exclusive or. So what that says is I can have horn as a keyword or digital as a keyword to search for, but I can't have both in order for that patch to be selected and displayed. Options. Options are additional features that help the query. As you've seen, so include names and duplicate search is already discussed. We'll put all of your patches in the library into the search regardless of which patches are currently displayed. Invert the query will essentially perform this entire query, and then any patches that would have been displayed by the query are hidden, and all of the hidden patches are displayed. So you've inverted the selection. Use settings of first selected patch. What this allows you to do, compare the settings of the first selected patch up against all of the other patches. This is most useful, say, when you're searching for duplicates. If you actually want to search for duplicates of a particular patch, you could select that one patch first in your library, then click on duplicates and click on use settings of first selected patch, and what you'll get is only the patches that actually are identical to that first selected patch that you were working with. Append duplicate name to comment. When this is checked, you'll actually, when you get the search comments, the name of the duplicate is added to that text window that you see displayed. Search entire library. I'm sorry, a misexplanation here. This option does the include names in the duplicate search. Normally when we search for duplicates, the name is ignored. So if you have two patches that are actually identical, and one is called Piano 1 and one is called Piano 3, you don't usually want to keep those two patches because the sound is exactly the same, only the name is different. If you check this option, then the name becomes part of the search, and everything, including the name, has to be exactly identical in order for it to be selected as a duplicate. To include the entire library, you click this option here, and all of the currently hidden patches are added back into the library. Check all selected for dupes forces the duplicate search, this one, to perform a little differently. By default, Midi Quest compares every patch in the library against every other patch in the library looking for duplicates. If you check this option, then what happens is Midi Quest takes each of the currently selected patches in the library and compares them against all of the other patches in the library, and only those patches that exactly match the currently selected patches are displayed as duplicates. Finally, this entire query is normally applied to the library that you open it from. If you check this option, then this query you set out will actually be applied to all of the libraries that you currently have open. And let's move on. Hide selected does exactly what it says. You have one patch selected there and it will hide it. Show all will take all of the hidden patches and add them back into the library. Delete hidden will delete all of the hidden patches since there aren't any hidden. The option is disabled, so let's go into here, say hide selected, and now you can delete the hidden patches. Watch here, you have hidden of 3, and afterwards you have no hidden patches. Swap hidden and displayed will do exactly again what it says. Let's hide these patches. Now when you choose swap hidden, all of the currently displayed patches are hidden and the hidden patches are displayed. The keys menu contains options that relate to the 8 different keys that you can assign to a particular library. Sort gives you a more sophisticated sort option. You can always click on any of these options here to sort the entries in the library. Click on key 2, sort it on key 2, click on key 8, and there you have a sort on key 8. But if you want to perform a more sophisticated sort, you can actually have the primary sort be key 1 and maybe the secondary sort be key 3. So what will happen here is all of the patches that have identical key 1 entries will then be sorted based on their key 3 entries, and you have additional options to potentially invert the order of the sort here and the order of the sort in this for the secondary element. Number library again presents you with a dialog, and you can actually add a sequential numbering to any one of the keys that you want. So I could say key 7, and now if you look here, key 7 has a series of numbers that go sequentially. What this allows you to do is say, okay, I like this order of patches for whatever reason. I would like to be able to return to this easily. You can set up a key with the sorted order, and then it's just a matter of clicking on that key to bring your library into that sorted order. You may want to do this because every time patches are hidden, sorted, anything like that, their order changes. When you hide patches and add them back into the library, those patches aren't added in where they were hidden from, they're added in back in the bottom of the library. So this provides an easy method to sort your patches back to a particular order. Move keywords allows you to do exactly what it says. You can say move all of the keywords that are currently in column 1, and you can move them to column 2, or from column 6 into column 4, whatever you wish. Merge keywords actually takes all of the keywords and shifts them. The next option, merge keywords, allows you to do the following. You can take a group of patches which you actually feel should have the same group of keywords, select them, go merge keywords, and what will happen is Midi Quest will collect all of the keywords used by each of the patches and assign them to all of the currently selected patches. And now this is particularly useful, say if you've just added a series of new patches to the library that all have the same style. You could actually assign the keywords you want to one of your patches, then actually select all of the patches that you've just added and say merge keywords, and each of the patches will now pick up all of the assigned keywords. The next menu item is relationships. And this is a fairly large dialog, and what it does is allows you to set up a whole series of predetermined options. So what you can do here is each of these entries, you'll see usually a short form followed by a full name, and what happens is each time you add patches to a library, Midi Quest by default automatically looks at the name of each patch and then looks through this list of short forms and says, okay, if my patch has, for example, CHRD, that's short for chord, and I should insert chord as a keyword to describe this patch, or sim is frequently used for symbol, so I'll add the keyword of symbol. So there's a whole series of these that are already automatically assigned, and you can add your own. So maybe you use BLK as a short form for, let's find a key and make up a short form. We'll do it as a reverse. There we go. Accordion. Maybe you frequently use ACC as a short form for accordion. You can add this, click the add button, and accordion is added as a short form. ACC is mapped to accordion. Now it's actually added to matched to acoustic as well. This side does something slightly different. You can also assign keywords to a particular MIDI sequence, so that if you ever say you want all of your patches that are pianos to be auditioned by a sequence that is particularly suited to showing off pianos, you can actually hit the browse button. You'll get a file selector. Use the file selector to choose a particular MIDI file that will be inserted here, and then again you can match that to a particular key. Say, I don't have a piano listed in here, but say you want to match up with cowbells. Then in the future, and maybe the file is called test.mid. You can add that. Now in the future, when you work with any library, when you click on a patch that has cowbell as a key, instead of a standard chord or sequence audition, instead the sequencer will actually load up the specified sequence and use that to do your auditioning. And You can remove entries using the remove button. I'm going to remove this entry. And I'm actually going to make another shorter entry and see if we can assign this. I believe it's under voice techniques, qualities. Assign this to acoustic. And if you want to enhance your keys while you're working in this dialog, you can always just click the button. You'll get your keys set up dialog, and you can make whatever additions to the categories or keys that you want. And the final option is apply default keys. And what this does is actually take all of the default key setup relationships that we've got here and actually applies them in the library. Disk. The disk menu contains various disk operations. They're exactly the same as what you've seen in the collection and the set if you've already watched those video tutorials. Load patch bank. If you select this option, you can either choose a DX voice or a DX bank, and what Midi Quest will do, I'm going to set this up for you. I'm going to select all, and I'm going to clear. And now let's do this. So if I choose a bank, you'll see here, these are all of the patches from that bank have been loaded up into the bank and separated, and as you'll notice, each of them already has some keys automatically assigned based on the name of each voice. And I can do that either for a single patch or a bank. Save patch does the reverse. I can choose a patch, click on Save Patch, and give it a file name and save it off to disk. Link patch bank is a little bit different, and what happens here is you still select a bank or a patch. The difference is you will see a little disk marker beside each of the patches that you've just loaded. Now what this means is that you have a disk linked patch, and that means that these patches are part of the library for auditioning purposes, for search purposes, but the actual data is not stored in the library. The data is actually stored in the separate patch or bank file that you selected from disk. And what that allows you to do is to have a particular bank or patch that can be referenced from a number of different places, from say several different libraries, from several different combination banks, from several different sets. All of these can reference this one patch bank or patch file on disk, and if you ever want to make any edits to that file on disk, everything else, all of the other entries are automatically updated. So you can just have your data in one place and share it amongst the other windows and organizational tools that Midi Quest provides. Save Patch and Link does something similar. If you choose a patch and save and link, then that patch becomes a linked file. The next option in the disk menu is Resolve Links. And what this does is every patch in the library which is currently set up as a linked file is unlinked, and that patch is actually now stored in the library the next time the library is saved to disk. In the randomize menu, there are 4 different randomize options that will create new patches for you in various different ways. If you'd like more extensive information on these various options, I suggest that you have a look at the bank video tutorial where these are covered in greater depth. However, I'll demonstrate each of these. Mix all. What you can do is choose 2 or more patches. In this case, I will choose 5. Choose Mix All. And what Midi Quest does is actually create a new library of entries. Now, what Midi Quest does here is it randomly picks parameter values from each of the selected 5 patches to create new patches using those specific values. So the patches aren't random, they're using component values from your selected patches, and so they will have some of the same qualities of the patches that you have selected. Now obviously, the more patches you select, the less like any particular patch the resulting sounds will be. And also, don't think that if you choose just 2 patches that you will always get the same results. Each time Midi Quest picks, it's going to pick different values from those 2 patches in different combinations. So even choosing 2 patches and going Mix All can give you a fair range of variety between these 2 patches, depending on the quality of the patches themselves. And the other thing to remember, you can change. Right now you see that 50 patches are created. If you want to change that number, you can go into Library, take this mix value, and change it to, say, 100 if you want 100 new patches to be generated. The next option is Blend, and Blend creates new patches, again, based on your currently selected patches, but it does it in a slightly different way. It takes larger pieces of each of the selected patches when it combines them, and as a result, you tend to have a little more continuity. You'll say get an entire envelope from one of the 2 patches that you've selected, so you have bigger components of the patches that make it to your newly created group of sounds. The next option is Morph, and Morph actually requires that you have the editor window open. Now you open the editor window, as you've seen, by simply clicking on this Edit Split button, and you will get an editor for the first selected patch. Now, any edits you perform in here are actually stored when you go to the next patch to edit, or you close the edit window. So the other thing about morphing, a morph is from one patch to another. So you can only select 2 patches to morph. If I select those 2 and choose randomize and morph, then what I get is a new bank, and these patches, again, I'm going to split the window so I can open up an editor. And what happens here is that each successive patch gradually moves from the original Acme siren sound, and it gradually moves towards the sleigh bell sound. So I will close up this morph window, and we'll have a look at the final randomize option, which is Gen 4. Gen 4 requires that 4 patches be selected. And we'll look at the final randomize option, which is Gen 4. Now, Gen 4 requires the selection of 4 patches. And once you have your 4 patches selected, choose Gen 4, and you get a dialog that looks like this. In the 4 corners, or 4 sides, you have the 4 patches you've selected. The closer you click to a particular patch, the more the sound you generate will sound like that patch. And each click within this box essentially generates a patch. So you make clicks or draw lines until your bank is filled with new patches. So clicking here, I have a sound that is strongly biased to bass 3, biased against flange bass, and an equal bias towards between P bass and brass bass. So I can click around on this grid, generating patches. Now, if you notice, there are 2 different generational options. Mix functions very much like the mix commands, the mix all and plain mix command that you've seen earlier. And what happens here is you click, a random number is generated. Based on that random number and the position, the value is pulled from one of the 4 patches. Now, the alternative to that, so that's based on randomization. The alternative is blend. And what blend does is it is an actual fixed value is calculated. So if you click, say, here, then the percentage between this and this is determined based on the mouse click, and the percentage of bass brass and P brass is determined based again on the location of the click. The values from each of the 4 patches are extracted from the patches, and they're combined to produce a single value based on the position of the click. So blend, every time you click in this one position, you get a patch that sounds exactly the same. Where with mix, you can click in the same position and get an entirely different sound because you are basing the selection on a random number and taking the percentages based on the random numbers. You can also draw lines, which is the same as multiple clicks. If you really have a large bank and you want to finish things off quickly, you can select this and your next click will finish up generating the bank. So there is a newly generated Gen 4 bank, and you can audition the patches, take any patches that you like and bring them back in the library, or you can save that bank completely on its own. Export has its own tutorial since these options are similar or actually identical to 4 different windows within Midi Quest. So we'll cover them once in their own tutorial. Move to, you'll have seen this before if you've looked at any of the tutorials for the main windows. What this allows you to do is to move the selected contents from the library into another window. In order for this to work, you actually need another window open. So I could quickly create a new library. And now I can choose Move To, and I have the option to move that patch to this library. This dialog that is presented will give you a list of all of the available open windows that the data can be moved to. Transmit, we've seen before. You can choose this to transmit the currently selected patch to the instrument. Get will load the current voice in your DX7 or TX7. Save library saves your library. Save library as allows you to save the library under new name, and you can print. So to wrap this up, the library is usually where you store your collection of sounds for a particular instrument. Now you can make a collection of drum sets, make a collection of combis, whatever you want, but most frequently when you create a library, it will be a library of sounds. For each sound, you can assign up to 8 different descriptive keys, which allows you to perform searches and sorts, and this becomes your one-stop resource. If you want a piano sound, search for your pianos, audition through them until you find the one that you like or is closest to what you want, and then you can start editing it to make the piano sound that you really need. Thank you for viewing the library tutorial.